Started the recording. Okay, welcome back. We're up to Masechtes Chagigah, Daf page 4b, and we're up to this area where the Gemara is now going to start sharing. So before I go into this, before we move on here, it's going to be two portions from each sage, from each Tana or Moira, that they're going to share something about themselves, something that ticked them off. From where I grew up, how am I going to say this? From where I grew up, crying was something that you've been called a baby if you cry. And boys would hustle up, hey, the boys don't cry. The saying goes, boys don't cry, but men do. So as the sages will start sharing things that tick them off, things that actually made them cry, is in a way of connection. As we see in the Masechta, this is, as I said many times, Masechtas Chagigah is the Masechta for where we connect. We learn about connection. The Tanum start sharing about their lives, things about themselves. And then eventually we're going to reach to things that they share about Hashem, things that make Hashem cry. And obviously sharing, putting someone in a vulnerable position is a way of connecting, a way of trusting. So the Gemara starts off with Rav Hina. Rav Hina goes first. Now, to understand what we're talking about here, what Rav Hina is sharing, this site here has a very nice feature. I wonder if I can use it here to drill in and to learn something about Rav Hina before we learn what he said, which pusik meant so much for him. So I wonder if I can just drill right into Rav Hina. So yes, clicking on Rav Hina tells me right away at which time he lived. It tells me that he was a disciple of Rav. Later, he had his own yeshiva in Surah. Okay, so yeah, you can read up more here. It's telling us about Rav Hina, that he had his own yeshiva, and when it came to monetary financial matters, he would say that you should rule according to Rav Nachman. So I don't know what it's referring to, but this is a nice bio, something to just jump in to get to know a little bit more about Rav Hina. So let's just start. Rav Hina kimut lahai kru. When Rav Hina would come to this pusik, to this verse, Yira Yerua, which we have learned many times here in the Masechta, where we're talking about to be seen and to see. When he learned about that bucha, he cried because it meant so much to him. The idea of being seen by Hashem and seeing Hashem. And he would say, Omar, he said, Evet sharaboy metzapeloi, a slave that his master so much wanted to liroisoi, to see him, Yisrachek mimani, has been so distanced from him. And where does he say that he were distanced? The Siv, because it says in Pusik, when you would come see my face, mi bikash zois miyetchem rumos chatzayru. Now this is also a verse that we have learned right before. I think we even had it last week when we learned that Hashem said, did I ever ask for you to come in with your shoes? We learned this, that you should not be wearing your shoes in the Beis HaMikdash. But it's an expression where the Nuvi, the prophet, would say that Hashem was complaining on us that we're coming to see him and we're not preparing. We're not worthy of it. We're not appreciating it. So we're distanced from him. And this is what Rav Hina said, that Hashem so much wants to see us that he's giving us a yomtov, a holiday, to come up so that we can see him and he can see us. And we've been so distanced that he's saying, why are you coming up? You're not worthy. You're not preparing correctly for it. So basically, if you see this, Rav Hina was yearning the connection to Hashem. We've been so distanced for something that we were so close with. And then we have another one that we talk about Rav Hina. So Rav Hina, when he would come to this pusik bucha, he would cry. It says, the translation means that you will be bringing offerings. You would slaughter your offerings, your animals, and you should eat it there, or you will eat it there. So again, he says, a slave that his master so much wants to eat with him. He wants him to be at his table and share a meal with him. Has gotten distance from him. You see, Hashem so much wanted us, and how are we so distanced? And where does he take a pusik to show that we're distanced? Because it says in pusik, this is again one of the pusikim that the prophet, I think the term is rebuked. He would give miser to the Yidden, and he would say that Hashem is complaining, why do I need all these zevchaichem, all of you offerings? The point wasn't just the offerings, the point was your hearts to be there, and not just to check off a checkbox and say, oh, I've done what I've got to do. So you see both of these parts, both of these pusikim that ticked off Rav Hina was yearning the connection to Hashem, that we've been so close to him and now we're so distant. We don't see it, we don't feel it, we have to work on it. Now sometimes we do, but it's not on a regular basis. It's not just going up to the Beis HaMikdash and you got it, we're all there. So this is what Rav Hina was taking up, was crying. Next one is Reb Luzer. Reb Luzer kimutel lahaikrim. When Reb Luzer would come to this pusik bucha, he would cry. This is something we have learned recently, a couple of weeks ago. His brothers couldn't answer him because they were so ashamed of his face. This is when the brothers of Yosef found out that Yosef is Yosef, when he revealed himself to his brothers, and he told them, Ani Yosef, and he asked them, does father still live? And then they couldn't answer him. So they were so shocked they couldn't answer him. So why was Reb Luzer so ticked off by this? Why did this make him cry? He says, he made a kal v'chomer. He says, when a person questions you and you can't answer him, it's so strong, that question. When Hashem will come and ask us on that day that will be brought to judgment, and he asks us how you did this and how you did that, how are we ever going to be able to answer him? He's obviously going to have way more better answers on us. Another way of explaining this, or maybe not another way, maybe a deeper way of bringing this, is why weren't the brothers able to answer him? What was even the question? Yosef asked them if his father is still alive. They couldn't answer that. I mean, right before, when they brought Benjamin, Yehuda said that father is still alive and well, and he can't afford not to bring Yehuda because that's going to hurt him. He doesn't want to hurt his father. So why couldn't he answer now? The answer is that when Yosef asked them, I am Yosef that you sold me to Egypt. Is father still alive? Meaning to say that, what's your argument? Your argument is you can't leave Binyamin here because the father will not be able to take it. So what I'm saying is, you've sold me. Is the father still alive? You didn't think of it then? That was the question that they heard Yosef say. Yosef still told them that you should have thought it when you did it to me too, that this will be so painful for Tati, for the father. And this is something they couldn't answer. And what Reb Luzer was saying, that when we will come up to heaven and we will have our days of judgment, each person judges themselves. The way it's going to work is Hashem is going to say, if someone does this and this, what should we do? They would find it in our own lives. Hashem would point to say, this is how you judged that person. This is what you said it should be. Now look, you did it. So you basically brought your judgment on yourself. Because how are we ever going to be able to answer to that? Because the comparison as to Yosef telling to Yehuda, why weren't you thinking of it then? When you yourself say right now that this will hurt the father. So that's the first part of Reb Luzer. The second one, Reb Luzer Kemutulahai Kru, when Reb Luzer came to this pusik, Buchai, he cried. V'yom Shmuel el Shuel, Shmuel was the Novi, and he told to Shul, Lamu hirgaztani la'alos oisi. Why did you bring me up? Okay, so what's the story here? Shmuel Hanuvi was already passed away. He was buried. Shul was in trouble with his war. This is a story in Nach. Shul would go to Shmuel and he would say a prayer that would bring Shmuel up from his grave to be able to ask him a question, to talk to him. And Shmuel came up so scared. Okay, I see that I'm already saying the Gemara later down, but let me just speak it out right now and we'll get to it. So Shmuel was scared and he asked, why did you bring me up? So the Gemara says, if you say that Shmuel, that he was such a big tzaddik, the prophet Shmuel, and he was still afraid of judgment, only us, alachas kamu v'kamu, we are for sure troubled. We should for sure be afraid of judgment, of the day of judgment. So let me come back here and repeat both, just so that we can say, what is Reb Luzer sharing with us here? Reb Luzer is sharing us the fear that he had from Hashem. The first one was how Yosef answered to his brothers, and how am I ever going to answer to Hashem? And the second one is when Shmuel HaTzadik, the Shmuel HaNuvi, the big tzaddik, was so scared. How am I to be scared? Way more, obviously, because I'm not as a big tzaddik. So this is the strong point of Reb Luzer, when he was like, his thing that ticked him off was the fear of Hashem. So now the Gemara is going to come back and elaborate on the story of Shmuel. What happened there? And from where do you see that Shmuel was actually afraid? Yes, I see that he came up and he asked, why did you call me up? Or how do you see from this pusik that he was actually scared? So the Gemara says like this, Shmuel Mai Dichsef. What does it say about Shmuel Mai? How do we know he was scared? Because it says, Vatoimeru Ishu El Shul U'elekem Ru'isi Oilam. She basically sweared with the name of Hashem, saying Elekim Ru'isi Oilam. I saw plural, two come up. So when you called up Shmuel, not just Shmuel came on, someone else came along. So the Gemara says Oilam is a plural trimashmil. It shows that two came up. So the Gemara says Chat Shmuel. The first one was Shmuel Hanavi. The Idech, the Uzel Shmuel ve'aisem leMoshe b'Hadai. Shmuel was so scared that he went and he called Moshe Rabbeinu to come along with him. Why? Umarla, he told them, Dil mechaz v'shulam l'dina mizbe'ainu. Maybe I'm being called to judgment. Kim ba'adai, please come along with me. Because there isn't a thing that you wrote in the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah. So Shmuel was so scared of judgment that he went and called Moshe Rabbeinu to come along with them, so that Moshe can testify for him that he has done everything that's written in the Torah. And that's why we see Shmuel, that's how we know Shmuel was afraid that he brought along Moshe Rabbeinu with him. Now, Rashi explains here, if I remember correctly, that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't live in the time of Shmuel. How could Moshe Rabbeinu testify that Shmuel actually kept the Torah? So the answer for that, Rasha, I think it tells us, I don't have it in front of me, that he didn't need Moshe to testify that he has done everything correct. He needs Moshe to testify what he meant with what he wrote in the Torah. Because what he did was self-evident. That's visible in Shemaim. You see what everyone did. But he needed to be able to prove what I did is what the Torah has wanted me to do. For that, he needed Moshe Rabbani to be able to confirm this is what I meant. This is what the Torah meant. And yes, what you did goes along with it, complies with what the Torah meant. Any questions here? I'm just moving along now with the two members of Reb Luzer and how we see that Shmuel was so afraid of it. Okay. So moving along, now we have Rav Amma. Rav Amma kimutalai kru bucha. Rav Amma would cry when he would come to this pusik. He says, Yitain be'ufar pi ila yesh tikvu. I don't know the story, but it's let me see if I can quickly drill through here and find the nach. So they would put earth in his mouth. Maybe this would be atonement. Okay, so this is basically a punishment that he's been saying that we put earth in his mouth, and maybe this is going to be an atonement for him. So he says, Killahai Eli, after all that, and then only maybe, it's not even sure. So what I make out of this is that he was afraid of the punishment of judgment, that the punishment is so strong, so severe. Let's see another one about Rav Amma. Rav Amma kimutalahai kru bocha. Again, he would cry when he would get to this pusik. Bakshi tzedek, bakshi anova, meaning I've been searching for righteous, I've been searching for humbleness. Ilai sisarti b'yom af Hashem. Maybe it's going to help me on the day, as an expression of the anger of Hashem, like when it comes to the day of judgment. So again, he says, Killahai ve'ilai, I've been searching for righteous, I've been searching for humbleness, and all that, maybe it's going to help. It's not even so sure it's going to help. So again, this is two parts that we see that Amma shared, and you can see that he was more afraid of the punishment of the judgment. I really feel bad. I should have come prepared more about these sages, more about Reb Luzer, more about Reb Amma, so that we can actually connect to them and understand more about their life and about them, to understand maybe why these pesikim were so meaningful for them. So the next one is Reb Asi. Reb Asi kimutalahai kru bucha. Reb Asi, when he got to this pusik, he would cry. He would say, Siniru behavi toif. You should hate bad. You should love good. Batzigi b'shar mishpat illa yenachem Hashem alechai tzevuos. So this is very, very similar to Rav Amma said. You should hate bad. You should love good. You should be close to the doors, or to the openings, to the doors of the courts, so that you know the halachas, you know the laws of how to live by, and maybe it's going to help you on the day of judgment. So again, killahai ve'ilai, so much, and maybe ve'ilai, and only maybe. So now we're going to move into another member from Rabbi Yossi, something that made him cry. But we're going to hit into a story together with this. So we're going to see how this goes. Rabbi Yossi kimutalahai kiru. When Rabbi Yossi would come to this pusik bucha, he would cry. It says, the yesh nispe beloy mishpat. There are those who die without mishpat, meaning it's not yet their time. Let me turn that off. Sorry. There are those who die before their date has come, before their time has come to pass away, meaning there was no judgment on them, and yet they died. So he says, Omar, mi iked uzel beloy zimna? Is it possible for someone to die before it's his time to die? Before it's been his set date when how long he's meant to live? And the Gemara answers, and yes, there is such a thing. So we're going to go in here to a story, and then I'll try to elaborate, and I'll try to say what I take away from the story. And hopefully you, the listener, anyone following along, take a minute and see what do you learn from the story. What are we walking away with? So the Gemara says the story. Kahu de Rav Bibi bar Abaye. There was Rav Bibi, who was the son of Abaye, have a shchirach gabay malach hamovas. The angel of death would be acquainted, would come there. He would see him often. And one day he was there, Omalai l'shlichai, and he sees the angel of death talking to his servant, and he tells him, Zil asyili Miriam megadlai sa'ara neshayo. He tells his servant, go bring me someone with the name of Miriam, that she grows hair of woman. So what happened? Azal as he went, Asyelai Miriam megadle dardekai. He went and he brought the wrong Miriam. He brought someone, the name Miriam, but she wasn't the one that would grow the hair. She would raise kids. That was her job. Omalai, so when the angel of death saw that the wrong Miriam is here, so he says, Anu Miriam megadle sare neshaya amarlach. I told you to bring the Miriam that grows the hair. You brought me the wrong Miriam. Omalai, so his servant says, oh boy, I made a mistake. Ihucha hadrai. Should I go and return her? Put her back to life? Omalai, so the angel said, Hoyil va'asitai, since you already took her, lehavelimyuna, just let it be a part of the account. Let it be another number, basically. Add it onto the account. So here is the story. This is what happened. When Rav Bibi saw that, he turned to the angel of death, and he has a ton of questions. How is this even possible? What's going on here? So he asks, how were you able to do this? So I want to point out here that humans are stronger than angels. Okay? An angel cannot just come and take a human, they're stronger. So he asked him, were you able to do this? So he says, Havas Nikita Masuru Bida, Bahava Kushogra Imochra Tanira. So what happened here is, this is Aramaic, it's a little hard in translation. But he says that she was holding a big metal rod. She was using it to turn on, to turn over the woods in the fire, the coals. Shekalta vanachanta agaba dakara. She took it out of the hot fire and she put it down on the earth, on the floor. Kedato the Israel gabakara. Wait a second. So she put it down on her foot. She basically burned her foot. She took some risk here. So if I got to mention, we're switching over to page 5a. So basically what she did is she took some risk. She took that metal rod and she wasn't careful with it and she burned herself with it. And the minute she burned herself with it, Kedachu the Israel mazalo. Then her muzzle means her luck, became very weak. And va'atisa, and that's when I was able to take her. Meaning normally a person has strong luck. And Allah, an angel, has no power over humans. But here, since she has taken some risk that she shouldn't have, and she hurt herself, she became sick. Once she's sick, the angel had now the power to take her. But he's still not happy with this answer. Okay, so you're stronger than her. But Do you have permission to do that? Being stronger doesn't allow you to just go and take people. Omalai. So the angel answered to him, V'lukasif. It says in the Pusik, V'yesh nispe beloy mishpah. There are those who pass away without any judgment. So Rav Bibi wasn't happy. He still pushed back. I just want to make sure I pronounce his name right. Rav Bibi, right. So he told him, but it says in the Torah, that one generation comes, one generation goes. You don't just take young people. The angel didn't answer on that. He says, yes, there's still generations. Omar, oh, the angel did answer. Sorry, I confused here. Omar, so the angel answered, Derunainu, I would take him, I would take her around with me. I would not let her go up to Shemayim. The soul stays here in this world. I'll keep her around with me until she finishes off her her generation finishes off, and only then I would pass her soul to go up to Shemayim. Meaning, even though she passed away, but the soul doesn't go up to Shemayim. The soul lingers around in this world until the time comes for that whole generation to pass away. Then the Malach HaMuvas, the angel of death, would say, okay, they can go up. But Rabbi is still not happy. Rabbi asks him, Umalai, Saf, at the end of the day, Shanai Ma Avadatai. There's numbers of years that people need to live. And by taking away someone before their time, before they have lived the years that they're meant to live, what happens with those extra years that someone was meant to live? You can't just let that be canceled. Everything is accounted for. Omar, so the angel answered, if there is some holy person, some tzaddik, that he forgoes on things that people hurt him, as we learn in Pirkei Avos, Mavel al Medosav, someone who, even though he has a right to answer back, he's been insulted, and he can answer back, but he takes it on, he stays quiet. He gets extra years to live. And that's the reward for someone who takes on themselves pain from other people. They don't answer back. They're soivel. They're okay with it. Then they get extra years to live. The Malach, the angel of death, gives it to them. And this becomes exchange, these years, for the person who didn't live, that died early. This years becomes for them. And the tzaddik gets those years to live to do more mitzvahs. This is how up to where the story goes. So I want to sum this up, and I want to say, what are we talking here about? So what I take away from this story is the idea of suicidal. There are people who are suicidal. Some will commit suicide. Some will commit, but they didn't succeed. That's the worst sometimes, right? You got to live now with the pain. So what happens with them? From this Gemara, we learn so much information as to how does it work, and what's considered committing suicide. Okay? In this case, it doesn't say that she was depressed. It doesn't say that she wanted to kill herself. All it says is that she took extra risk. So this is one thing I learned from this story. A person is not allowed to take any extra risk in life. As extra risk means anything from driving without wearing a seatbelt when there is a seatbelt and you could wear it, or speeding when you shouldn't be speeding. That's another extra risk. Now, of course, I'm guilty with it, but it's still extra risk, and it doesn't always cost doing it. But even if we succeed and it doesn't cost us, God forbid, our life, it still costs us from our mazel, from our good luck. As we see here, that having good luck is something that accumulates. It's something that has a number. As we see Yaakov Avinu, when he said, he prayed to Hashem before Isaac would come, he says, I'm belittled from all the goods that you have done to me, that I may not maybe have enough luck, enough zechusim, enough muzzle to withstand now against Isaac. So from this we do see that a person should not take any extra risks in life. Of course, you have to take sometimes risks, but don't take extra because they cost. And sometimes it may be the last little bit that you had. And we also see here that normally an angel has no power. People should not be afraid of death because the angels can't cause death. If you're careful in life and you don't take extra risks, you don't have to live in a fear of death because angels can't hurt you. You're stronger than them. You have way more power. Also, I see from here that if someone does take risk, or even worse, commit suicide, that there's something called in Kabbalah, something called like kaf hakaila, which means the soul does not get to rest. We've gone into a very interesting topics here. The soul does not get to rest. It doesn't go back up to Shemaim, to where all souls come from. They linger around in this world. There is such an idea where souls are lingering around in this world and they don't have their rest. They don't find their place of rest until the time comes when the angel of death decides, okay, we can pass them along. Otherwise, they would linger. Therefore, it's not worth it for someone saying they're being miserable and they want to commit suicide. It's not worth it because you're not getting to a better place. You're going to stay in this world and you're not going to be able to do anything about it because you don't have a body anymore to be able to do anything. You're just going to be able to see and hear everything, but not being part of it. So there's another thing we see from this story here. We also see that everything is accounted for. Every year that a person lives, every minute, every day, and if it's not lived by that single person, then somebody has to live it. Every little thing is accounted for. There's no mistakes. There's no things that just happen out randomly. What else can we see out from a story like this? I'll leave it up to the listener. And if you can share something in the comments, I would love to hear. I think we're going to pause here. Any questions? Okay, so we're going to pause here. From here on, we're moving on to Rabbi Yochanan, of things that ticked him off, that made him cry. Have a good week.